February 3rd, 2025 to order at 6 p.m. Would you please join me in...
Mayor, would you please take your microphone?
...of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And now we'll have an invocation from Pastor David Barnes.
Would you bow your heads? Tonight I'd like to pray Psalm 23 over this. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato?
Here.
Bowman?
Absent.
Clairgett?
Here.
Cole?
Absent.
Elfers?
Here.
Kenna?
Here.
Ranky?
Here.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Cole is absent tonight. Do I have a motion to excuse?
I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Bowman.
Motion by Councilmember Potato.
Second.
It was made for Councilmember Cole.
I'm sorry. Wrong. I'll redo it.
Yeah, let's do
I
it
make
over.
a motion to excuse Councilmember Cole.
All right, do I have a motion?
You have a motion. You have a second. I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Elfers. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody not in favor? Passes unanimous. All right. Deputy Bowman is absent tonight. Is there a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor Bowman?
I'll make a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Motion by Councilmember Elfers. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. That would be seconded by Councilmember Kenna. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? No? Passes unanimous. Okay. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item number 1, resolution number 1710, interlocal agreement renewal with Sunnyside for jail services. Item number 2, approval of the minutes for the regular council meeting of January 21st, 2025, and the 27th of January, 2025 study session.
Thank you. Councilmember Elfers, would you please make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda of February 3rd, 2025.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Clairgett. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Would any council member wish to remove an item? All right. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. All right. Tonight we have a public hearing on resolution number 1713, 226 to 231 6-year transportation improvement program annual update. I will open the public hearing at 6:04 p.m.
Mayor, would you like to invite Ms. Cottrell or Ms. Luttrell up to the podium?
I was heading there right now, and I will ask for Courtney Luttrell, Assistant Engineering Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Courtney Luttrell, Assistant Engineering Manager. This public hearing is for the 2026 to 2031 six-year Transportation Improvement Plan update, also referred to as the six-year TIP. The slide you are seeing is the overall map of the six-year TIP that was presented at last Monday's study session. Per state law, the city is required to update the six-year TIP annually and file a copy of the approved plan with the State Department of Transportation. The city must also hold a public hearing for the public to comment on the plan. There are a few quick projects that I'd like to highlight. The first being the Stewart Road Bridge replacement. Construction is anticipated for this project to begin in March of this year. The Washington Street Preservation Project is currently in design, and construction is anticipated to begin in early 2026. And Hops Alley construction is anticipated to begin in the spring of this year. And with that, I will open it up to the public.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? You have 3 minutes to speak.
Randall Adams, 15013 63rd Street, Court East. I don't know if this is the right time, but since we're looking at road projects, I remember as you guys were looking at budgets, that if you increased your sales tax by 0.1%, that would generate $800,000 of income for you to work toward these projects. I think that is something maybe you should reconsider. Reach out to Sunset, Ford, and Chevy, because I'm sure that they're your largest sales tax revenue generator, just to make sure that doesn't affect them. Currently, we have a much lower sales tax rate than what does Puyallup, Kent, Federal Way, Tacoma, Olympia. So that would still be less than them. Everyone else is over 10. Only Enumclaw is less than us, and I don't think people are going to go out to Enumclaw when they have the package that Sunset offers them. So I would suggest that reconsider that to try to address your costs on these items.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Bierman.
Is it on? Okay, thank you. All right, so Nick Bierman, 5802 Parker Road East. I just wanted to ask a question regarding the budget, specifically related to Hops Alley. And I know this is not really a Q&A time, but if there is a good resource that I can look to that would lay out the spending of the $2.92 million that the city accepted in the LTAC grant from Pierce County, if there's a detailed, I guess, a budget on what all the expenses that go into that $2.92 million are, since the project is going to start in the spring. So maybe someone from the city can direct me to a good resource.
Thank you. Right now we're talking about the transportation plan. So.
Well, this was part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? State your name and address in 3 minutes.
Casey Henderson, 5908 162nd Ave East. My main concern with this is the block C11. It's the 164th Street Court East, I believe it is. It's going to connect 162nd to 164th Ave Court East. It's just a little extension road, but since they built the Sumner Mill Apartments, we've had a lot of issues with people speeding in and out of that parking lot, past the house up to the corner of 162nd, and down there at 60th, it turns to Main Street. But people will bypass 160th and 60th in the afternoon when traffic gets backed up, and they fly through the apartment complex parking lot. And right now they're trying to get speed bumps installed in their lot. And we have already asked about getting speed bumps on our road on 162nd because people fly through there to cut through. And that C11, once that's connected, that's just going to be another path for people to just fly through there. There's been a few occasions, at least that I personally have witnessed, where Sumner PD hangs out right there at the end of the street, and they'll nab people flying through there. But speed bumps need to be a priority for 164th Ave Court East and 162nd between 60th and where the apartments are, because people just use it as a racetrack, and everybody's got their heads down on their phones, and it's a serious hazard because there's a lot of people in there that own pets that walk their dogs. A lot of people from the vet walk their dogs up and down that street, and it's only a matter of time before somebody gets killed.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? All right. I will close this hearing at 6:11. And we will move on to public hearing.
Comments?
What?
Public comments.
Hey, we just did public comments.
No, that's hearing.
Mayor, the next item on the agenda would be unfinished business. Seeing none, we're going to be moving into public comment.
Yeah, I know. I
Would
wish
you like me to
Barbara
read the
was-
rules?
What?
Would you like me to read the rules for public comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The public comment period is your opportunity to speak to the council and the mayor on the issues that are not on the agenda. When the clerk calls your name, please step up to the podium, and you do have 3 minutes to speak. As a reminder, this portion of the meeting is the council's opportunity to hear from the community and not a time to engage in debate. The council will not be answering questions, and you may be directed to a staff member. The first person on our list for public comment is Mr. Randall Adams, 15013 63rd Street, Court East, Sumner.
Randall Adams.
With the city now saying that the second deed regarding the Ryan House is invalid, where do we all stand? Is this the reason the city offered twice in the last 16 months to walk away from the Ryan House because you haven't complied with the first deed over the last 45 years of it and not having a library there? Maybe now is the time to save the city $360,000 that you have allocated to demolish it and give it back to the Ryan family. I have spoken with well-known local contractors who embrace the idea of the city releasing the property so that we don't have to deal with prevailing wages and bid processes that you have to. Instead, being able to work with known subcontractors donating their time and suppliers who either donate completely or substantially discount the cost of their goods to help this come together. Also, a private banker for contractors who has been personally active in building nonprofit homes for people in need at an average expense of 52% of the cost that it normally would be, has been willing to help. Lastly, there have been serious conversations with reputable, well-known local nonprofits for the assistance of the operation of and guidance of a rebuilt Ryan House. Yes, all of these extremely reputable people are also interested in what's the vision for the house's future to ensure its ability to sustain itself. Those ideas are being worked out, yet I can tell you that under no circumstances will it be under the auspices of the Historical Society as has been done previously. Hopefully there will be pieces that celebrate Sumner's history inside the house so that they can be a part of the city's future that way. Gregorio Esparza was a defender of the Alamo. His brother Francisco was a reserve in the Mexican Army. After the fall of the Alamo, Francisco found his brother and asked permission to bury him. His request was accepted, and Gregorio was the only defender of the Alamo who was given a Christian burial. At ceremonies at the Alamo to this day, the Esparza descendants are often included and celebrated as honored guests. I tell you this because I have an amazing sister-in-law who's an Esparza descendant, and the family has gatherings over 200 that get together and celebrate their unique and important part of Texas history. My reason for going over this is, why don't we include and celebrate the heirs of Sumner, the Kincaids, the Wooleries, the Ryan families, and even more of our folks that celebrate or started Sumner, and celebrate them in downtown. The annual celebrations could be in conjunction with other events starting at the Ryan House with historic information, have folks then shop Main Street and finalize downtown or their day with a concert at Canal Block Heritage Park. That would be a great way to educate our new families who don't know that much of our history, and would allow them to understand why we have such a wonderful oasis that we all love and celebrate. We are Sumner. We can do this.
Thank you.
The next person on the list is Susan Copes, 21118 Kelly Lake Road East, Sumner.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm a lifelong educator. I have a BA, an MA, and a PhD in education and a master's in business administration. My husband, who's with me here, is a certified engineer with 3 master's degrees. So I say that because we tried to start and open a small school in a church portable in January of 2024. It happens to be on Stewart Road that you've already been talking about. It's actually the location where I opened a school in 2021 that subsequently moved on. I reached out to each of you via email, but I didn't get one response. We've had 10 frustrating months, and we finally obtained an attorney to help us through the process. As of today, we have paid what we considered quite an onerous and punishing permit fee so that the kids could have full-time school there at this portable. My purpose for being here tonight is to ask some questions that we have asked through our conversations and we still don't have an answer to. Number one, can you provide me with the authority that results in a forfeiture of the one-time payment? That's a CDC. That, Ms. Marquez, you might remember that one. Number two, how is it that system development charges have evolved into impact fees, and what is the history there that equates those two terms? My attorney asked why the previously paid fees won't be credited to us. For instance, if in the future another organization wants to occupy the Cornerstone space, would they also have to pay sewer impact fees based on their occupancy and a subsequent tenant after that? Is that the case for each new occupancy in an existing space? Since the SDCs are intended to reflect the purchase of plant capacity, definition by Mr. Fessler, if future occupancies don't increase the flow into the system, then the need for new SDCs seem unnecessary since the plant capacity has already been paid for. Otherwise, with any change of occupancy in any building that doesn't increase the flow into the sewer system, the SDCs appear to be duplicate and not otherwise justified. He asked to please let me know what you think about that. He didn't get an answer either. And number four, if the city stands by the assessed CDCs for this small, tiny school, is there somewhere to whom we can appeal? The sewer district or persons in charge of the SDC, I might have said CDC a couple times, SDC policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last person who has signed up is Kenneth Copes, Bonnie Lake.
He just signed it. He just signed it.
All right, thank you. Mayor Hayden and I have no more on my list.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody participating on Zoom? I don't see anybody on Zoom. All right. Andrea Marquez.
I'm just waiting on the next item, Mayor.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to ordinance number 2917, endangerment with a controlled substance. And I call on Andrea Marquez, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is Ordinance 2917, which adopts a new crime in the city of Sumner called endangerment with a controlled substance. This criminalizes anyone who intentionally permits a child or their dependent to ingest or have contact with a non-prescribed controlled substance. Synthetic opioids like fentanyl have become dangerously common and way too widely available. And exposure for children often leads to an overdose or a terrible long-term medical complication. State law currently does criminalize endangerment with a controlled substance, but the definition in state law only applies to methamphetamines. And unfortunately, the reality is that meth is not the most commonly used and available drug today. So prosecutors are not equipped with the tools that they need to hold drug users accountable when a child or their dependent gets their hands on these dangerous drugs. Pierce County recently adopted this ordinance at the county level, and many other local jurisdictions, like the City of Ording and the City of Pacific, have already adopted ordinances similar to the one that's before you tonight. Also, currently, House Bill 1286 is pending at the state level to update the definition of controlled substance in state law. But similar versions of that bill failed in 2023 and 2024, resulting in this hole in state law. So in order to provide a stopgap to that hole and to equip our local officers with the tools they need to hold drug users accountable, we're presenting this ordinance to you tonight, establishing a gross misdemeanor in the city, which is punishable by up to 364 days in jail and a $5,000 penalty. Thankfully, this exact fact pattern has not occurred yet in Sumner, but we want to be out in front of it and make sure that we have the law on the books to criminalize this conduct. It's worth noting that if the proposed state law does pass, this local ordinance would be preempted and automatically void if a state felony is adopted. But for now, staff are proposing this local ordinance to make sure that these dangerous drugs stay out of the hands of children and dependents.
Thank you. So before we go on, can I have a motion from Councilmember Botetto?
Yes. I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2917, endangerment with a controlled substance.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Elfers. All right. Any comments from the public on this matter? Randall Adams.
First off, I'd like to thank the city and Andrea for getting ahead of this item. Anything that can help our police officers and our chief to protect our citizens is a wonderful thing. And hopefully it'll encourage the prosecutors to support our police officers once they've done this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead. State your name. Have 3 minutes.
Casey Henderson, 162nd Avenue East, 5908. Controlled substance, does that include marijuana and alcohol?
That is a very good question. The proposed ordinance specifically excludes marijuana and alcohol. It's any non-prescribed scheduled controlled drug.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Comments from the council? None. Councilmember Kenna.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. And we addressed some of these questions in email ahead of time, so I'll just do this just for clarity, just so other folks, if they had similar questions or this came up down the road. One thing that I was looking at with this ordinance is kind of the idea of recklessness, and I'm trying to put myself in these situations where something like this could occur, and it sounds like this is not a very common phenomenon, but it would be nice to have a tool at our disposal to be able to prosecute and deal with these types of situation. So in a case where somebody's being reckless, like maybe it's negligence, recklessness, whatever term you want to use there, where does that fall in terms of like the intentionality where somebody intentionally misplaced something or just left it out in front of a child or a dependent versus just being careless? Where is that such a fine line? It's really hard to define case by case, or how do we think about that?
So generally speaking, recklessness, the standard for recklessness in criminal law is carelessness. Intentionality is leaving it right there on the kitchen counter, right? You know it, you see it. Recklessness might be having it accessible in a purse that's on the floor. You think it's protected, or having it in a medicine cabinet that is not locked, right? That's reckless under criminal standard.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, I just want to commend the city for going forward with this. And you've done a similar law with the domestic violence. You know, if there's a child in that situation, you know, that there's consequences for the adults. So I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
All right. Any others? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato,
Yes.
Ranky,
Yes.
Kenna,
Yes.
Clarigat,
Yes.
Elfers.
Yes.
Passes unanimous. All right. Our last item on our agenda is resolution number 1712, Murray's Disposal 2025 rate increase. And I call on Jeff Steffens. Councilmember Ranky, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 1712, Mary's Disposal 2025 rate increase.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Kenna. All right, now I call on Deputy City Administrator Jeff Steffens.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city's franchise agreement with Murray's Disposal calls for an annual rate increase. That rate increase comes from two separate components. The first component is 80% of the local inflation rate for the previous year. This year, that's a 2.36% increase. The second component is a pass-through of what Murray's has to pay to dump the waste up at the landfill. That landfill rate is increasing from $174.84 per ton to $184.99 per ton, and that's effective March 1st. Murray's is also looking to once again pass through the carbon fee on fuel purchases to the city. That's based on Washington's Climate Commitment Act. That fee will actually decrease by 13.4% compared to what it was last year. All in all, an average residential service with a 65-gallon container, recycle, and yard waste is looking at an annual increase of roughly $30. If passed, these rates would go into effect March 1st, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Steffens? No? All right. Any questions from the public? Seeing none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato. Councilmember Potato,
Yes.
Elfers,
Yes.
Kenna,
Yes.
Clarigat,
Yes.
Ranky,
Yes.
passed 5-0.
Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Moving on to reports. Councilmember Ranky.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Elfers.
I just had two things. I think I just wanted to, just I appreciate that Murray's, when they presented this to us, that they are continuing to kind of put on there the carbon tax. I think it's important because that's a tax that has really cost a lot for people in Washington, and it's something that they have intentionally kept off of our gas bills. So I think it's really, I really appreciate Murray's coming forward and putting that on there. I don't necessarily like seeing prices go up, but I do appreciate they're providing transparency when we look at costs going up and things getting expensive.
that Climate Commitment Act is actually a huge part of those costs going up, and I just think it's good to see that, to know why this cost is going up. The second thing I wanted to point out, just to mention that we went to a couple of us here went to the economic forecast for Pierce County at the Tacoma Convention Center last week, and that was a really helpful event. Had a couple of economists, heard a couple of representatives, and just wasn't really optimistic for the next year. Pierce County specifically, it looks like we're really pretty flat for expected growth. Housing was one of the things that was holding things up, so it wasn't all roses and good information, but it wasn't looking like it's going to be a great year economically, but it was still really great to hear what's going on in the community in the area and to have a conversation about it. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Kenna.
Nothing from me.
Nothing. Councilmember Clergett.
Nothing tonight.
All right. Councilmember Botetto.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, you guys are easy. Deputy City Administrator Jeff Steffens.
Good evening. On the policy front, next week at our study session, we will be discussing funding and a bond delegation ordinance related to the city's construction of a new public works operations facility. Our next regular council meeting will be on a Tuesday, February 18th, because of the Monday holiday. We'll be discussing a contract approval for Security Solutions Northwest, design consultant contract for a Valley Avenue overlay, the PSC up and go agreement for EV chargers at our wastewater treatment plants, construction change order for Elm Street sidewalks, construction contract award for the Maple Street pedestrian signal. The transportation improvement plan, which you reviewed tonight, will come back as well as ordinances updating truck routes, the operations facility bond delegation, and then the budget amendment for the operations facility. And then policy follow-up, communications director Carmen Palmer will be giving an update on some of the legislative action we've been following.
Thank you.
Okay, they dared me to do this in 2 minutes, but buckle up. When we passed our legislative agenda, I said to expect a lot. We expected a lot of bills to be introduced and moved through the state that would affect cities, and I believe they have far exceeded even our highest expectations. So staff is tracking multiple bills that are making their way through the process. They are also moving these bills through the process much faster than anyone has ever seen them do before. So wait and see is not necessarily a good approach. Our lobbyists and our professional organizations, the Association of Washington Cities, SHAPE, our Affordable Housing Partnership, and WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, all help us watch all of these. But I'm going to give you a sampling, and this is just a sampling to try to get you out of here before the roads ice over. House Bill 1380 allows regulation of utilization of public property. This is a homelessness bill that would set state levels of when cities and how we could clear homelessness on public property. Not only does the loss of local control concern us, but the bill is being written very vaguely, which opens cities up to litigation. And actually, a few conversations seem to that is actually the aim, is to open up cities to litigation and have further details sorted out through the litigation process rather than the legislative process, which is not ideal for us. House Bill 5107 concerns underinsured motorist coverage for local government employees. This does increase the risk and cost liability to the city, and the mayor has registered as opposed to this bill. House Bill 1491 promotes transit-oriented housing development. Ryan Windisch has testified on this bill and suggested an amendment. We are all for transit-oriented housing, but there are a number of things about this bill that concern us, one of which is that last year the state funded a transit-oriented development plan, and that plan is not done yet. So we encourage them to not pass any legislation until they actually review the plan. The amendment that Ryan suggested is this controls within a half mile of a transit station, which would be the bulk of downtown Sumner. He has proposed an amendment that for cities under 20,000, they consider reducing that radius to a quarter mile to better fit our smaller footprint. So stay tuned on that one. There are other bills about transit-oriented development and parking. One of the things that will probably maybe concern City of Sumner and probably our residents and our businesses is some of the bills, in certain cases, completely remove the city's ability to require parking of new development. Parking's already an issue between our commuters and our businesses and our residents, and that would exacerbate the problem. Senate Bill 5148 would have housing elements of the comp plan going to the state for their review. Not only do we think this is unnecessary and puts a burden on the state for extra staffers to review every housing element from every comp plan in every city in Washington, but there's also an issue. We just went through a very public process to review our comp plan, and the idea that after all the local input that someone at the state could just amend it as they see fit. Again, loss of local control, loss of control from our residents to have that direct input into their city. House Bill 1195 requires cities to allow permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, indoor emergency housing, or indoor emergency shelter in any residential zone. We're watching this one. This was brought out last year. They amended it. They changed it when they passed it to only zones that allow hotels, and now they're looking to amend that to go back to any residential zone. And we do have concerns about that. Senate Bill 5061 regards prevailing wage requirements. This would affect public works projects. Instead of setting prevailing wage from the time of contract, it would require to pay the prevailing wage at the time of work. So that would increase costs, and we also don't know how logistically that would work. On the positive side, there are a few. This isn't just a complaint. Senate Bill 5288 offers a small sales tax for public safety that is actually a credit against the state portion of sales tax. So instead of raising sales taxes, a portion that now goes to the state could go to cities for public safety. We do like that idea. It is only to be used for additional officers. Similarly, Senate Bill 5060, you've heard about this a little bit in the public, is $100 million for law enforcement hires. This is in the right direction. We do have some concerns. It only covers 75% of the cost of a FTE for up to 3 years. It's capped at $125,000 for the city, which is about 2 years of funding, not 3, at the rate we're paying officers now. And it doesn't account for costs like the vehicle, the computer, other tools that are an estimated $100,000 per officer. And then it also adds requirements on our department for reporting. So a step in the right direction, but still some things about it that benefit outweighing the costs. Senate Bill 5052 updates police speaking with juveniles not suspected of a crime. Again, this is in the right direction. This is the way we want it to go. Law enforcement is providing some technical suggestions. House Bill 1252 is about accountability for judges with pretrial releases. This actually was supposed to have a hearing today, and Deputy Chief was registered to testify, and after waiting 90 minutes, they ran out of time. So we'll take another try at it, but this is one where he's going to be talking about our own experience with the 2 juveniles who shot at the Winco parking lot and received, very light pretrial sentences. On the transportation side, we did sign a joint letter for the transportation budget asking legislators to include the 405-167 corridor, including the SR 167 implementation plan that was in your legislative agenda. So we signed that letter and sent that in. We have a request from Representative Penner for funding for the 166 interchange, and we are putting together through the local capital projects application, sorry, I just lost the word there, through Representative Stokesbury, a request for $408,000 for funding the Stewart Road Bridge. Just a couple other things. We are concerned there is a potential loss of the Public Works Assistance Account, and there are many new taxes being proposed, a state B&O tax, a higher earning payroll tax that's similar to Seattle's employment tax. So those are some other things being watched. So that's just a wrap up, just a quick smattering. I know there's some bills introduced that affect PFAS at the wastewater treatment facility, that affect our ability to provide emergency management. So we're trying to watch them all, and I just want to give you a flavor and let you know where we are.
Thank you. Any comments for her or questions? Councilmember Kenna.
Just say, Carmen, that was amazing to go through everything in Olympia in 3 minutes or whatever that was. One particular one that stuck out to me was HB 1491, I believe, that was on the transit-oriented development. And I'm curious, sometimes when they define a transit station in those contexts, there's a certain amount of frequency or even a certain mode. So like maybe a train that is not frequently throughout the day wouldn't count. Do you happen to know the details of what would define a transit station in that context?
In this case, so far as the bill is introduced, I believe Sumner Station qualifies. That is one of the speaking points Ryan is using, that there is big difference in how you use something like Sumner's, which is more designed for commuter rail, versus perhaps a light rail station in Columbia City. It just changes. We're not using the rail to go run and get some groceries or something. It's just not available for that. So I'm not entirely sure what Mr. Windisch said when he testified, but that has been in the past one of our speaking points about the differences in some of these transit bills is that they don't make enough of a differentiation between commuter transit and regular transit.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
All right. We have no executive session tonight. I will say that not so much snow in Sumner so far, but Public Works is out putting de-icer on the roads today, and they're watching through the night to get the sanders out if we need it. So thank you to Public Works for keeping us safe from the snow. With that, I will adjourn this meeting at 6:40.